Hello and welcome back to another episode of Word Wednesday. I'm your host, Paige Goodger, and as always, we have Vix Weir. How's it going, Vix?
It's good. It's my favorite day of the week. Hanging with Paige.
Me too. So first, I will define the word and then answer some basic questions regarding the word. And then finally, I'll turn the mic over to Vix to hear about the corruption behind the scenes that we look at on the road to Ruta.
All the conspiracy stuff. That's what I like.
So this week's word is stock, and my official definition of stock is a piece or ownership of a company. So essentially, companies sell parts of their company so that other people can own those parts of the company. And units of stock are called shares. And each share is worth a certain amount based on what the company is worth. And owning stock gives investors a claim on the assets and earnings of a company based on the number of shares that you own. For example, if a company has 1,000 shares traded in the market and you own 100 shares, you would own 1/10 of that company. So last week we discussed bonds, which were considered debt. And this week we're talking about stocks, and stocks are considered equity. And equity is defined as the value of the shares issued by a company. So this represents the amount of money that would be returned to a company's shareholders if all of the assets were liquidated and all of the company's debt was paid off. So if you remember last week, bonds were typically a safer option because if a company went under, the bondholders would be paid back first. So that's what makes stocks a little bit more risky than bonds. So you might be asking, why do companies use stock? And sometimes getting a loan from the bank is expensive, and borrowing money from people is expensive as well. So this allows people to acquire the money that they need to create a business without acquiring additional risk or debt. So when companies need to raise money in order to grow, they can choose to offer ownership of shares to the public through stock. You can buy shares of privately traded companies or publicly traded companies like Apple or Facebook or Walmart. People buy stocks because if the average Joe is investing in a stock, he wants to have some type of financial gain. So you're essentially letting your money grow without really doing anything, and it's a way to turn a small investment into a bunch of money. You can claim part of a company's assets and earnings. But there's no guarantee that you will get your money back. So you might be wondering, how is stock made available? And this is referred to as a company going public. So that means that the ownership structure of the company is being changed from being owned privately by a few individuals to being owned publicly by thousands of individuals. And this is known as an IPO, or initial public offering. And these IPOs are then traded on exchanges such as the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ. And these stock markets are meant to bring together buyers and sellers so that everyone gets a fair price, in theory.
That's where we get to the good stuff.
Yeah, so let's go over some key features of stock, and then I will turn it over to Vix to hear about all the corruption. So some key features of stock: this represents ownership of a company. The value of a stock is not concrete, and it is subject to change as the markets change. Stocks are considered volatile because of the ever-changing market, and people periodically receive dividends of stock. And a stock dividend is paid to shareholders in the form of additional shares in the company rather than cash. There is a level of uncertainty in the return of stock investment since the value is dependent on many factors, such as company earnings, taxes, industry factors, and macroeconomics. Because of these diversified and unique characteristics, the common stock became the most popular instrument among the investors and traders all over the world. So Vix, let's turn it over to you. And what is the corruption? What are some of the conspiracies in this whole stock game?
Well, it's interesting because people don't even think about corruption in the stock market. They know there's criminal bankers. They think, they have a Charles Schwab account. They think that, oh, by the way, when I give them money and buy a share of Apple stock, that Charles Schwab goes out and buys the share of Apple stock and puts it in their account under their name. Doesn't happen. The way they do it is they have pools of liquidity, is what they call them. Pools of shares of stock, bonds. They all work off pools because it's expensive for them to go out and put it in somebody's name, even get the stock certificate sometimes and put in their name, and all that is really expensive to do. And they want to keep their fees down. They want to make it as cheap as possible to trade, so they don't even do it now. They'll do pools where, because they have so many customers, they've got 1 million people trading, buying, and 1 million people selling. They try to match it up, and they aren't doing a very good job at it. There's an entity called the DTCC, which is the Depository, Trust, and Clearing Corporation, that is supposed to settle all trades. Now, all trades of a stock settlement, meaning you exchange contracts, you exchange certificates, you put the name of the purchaser, the owner, into that person's name. They don't even claim to do that anymore. They use something called Cede and Company, CEDE and Company as the street name, as they call it. And it just adds so much to the ability for these brokerage houses and banksters to take the cash in and never buy the stock for you. Use the cash for something else. Now, then you also have your high-frequency traders. High-frequency traders is basically a computer trading program that automatically fires when certain things happen, and like instantaneously 10,000 trades per second type of thing. None of those are put into the name of the purchaser. None of them are recorded as sales. No money is transmitted. It's all become computerized, derivatized, as I call it, alternative derivatives. And the problem now is the DTCC, who's supposed to keep track of all this, has no idea who owns what. I printed out the Tesla stock, which is kind of a hot one these days. And you look at the volume of Tesla, total amount of shares out there in the public float, that's the public that are trading, is 147 million. And the average daily trading is 14 million. So that means every 10 days, every share of Tesla is traded. Most people just buy Tesla and put it in their retirement fund and don't touch it for decades.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. And these volumes, they could trade 100% of the shares in a single day because none of them are being settled. They're all just computer blips going back and forth and back and forth. So that's kind of the problem. They've tried to address it a few times. It's just criminality. Like everything you ask me, Paige, it comes down to criminality within the banking system. And that's what we're fighting. That's what we got to get rid of.
Yeah, that seems to be the common thread throughout all of these talks. When we really get down to it, it's just criminal. It's just criminal, and people lying and cheating and stealing, and it's all very criminal.
If you have stocks and bonds and all that in the system, they're going to go away. If not because the value isn't what they, this inflated stock market is, or because the music's going to stop and people will start pulling their money out, and then we're going to find out, oh my God, this is a gigantic Ponzi scheme is what it is. Selling things you don't have. And one day the music will stop, and you're going to see that there's only 5 chairs for 10 people, and they all come to get their share out of the exchange, and the exchange says, we don't have it, sorry. And that's where it gets to, okay, who are these people? Who are these people at the SEC? Who are these people behind the scenes at the banks? Who are the people in charge of the DTCC? And who do they report to? And that's, you get down that rabbit hole, and it's like, it's some evil dudes that we're dealing with. But I think hopefully we can fight this and just spread the news that, hey, everybody needs to wake up. What we're being told in the financial world especially is not what's really happening. And before they steal every penny we have, let's stop them. Let's get them out of here. implement like a crypto solution. There's some great blockchain solutions to the rehypothecation of assets that we talked about before, and move forward. We need to move forward, and we can't move forward if we keep bailing out brokerage houses. It's companies like JP Morgan, Fidelity, Citibank is one of the worst, Charles Schwab, all of them do the same thing. And as long as the music's playing, everything's fine. The moment the music stops, the emperor has no clothes. It's like I'm going to use every kind of reference. The music stops and the tide goes out and the emperor has no clothes. Something like that.
No one wants to play musical chairs with them.
I know. It's so dirty. Wow, we're losing it.
Oh, man.
It's been a long week.
Main takeaways from the Road to Ruta side of the stock market, stock exchange, is that, kind of this running theme of what they say they have, they don't actually have. And your money is in his car, and his money is in your house, and, another wonderful life situation where.
But that's what they admit to. It's what they don't admit to, that not only is your money in his car, 4 other people own that same car, and one day they'll all walk up to the car with a key, and all of them have the same key and the same title to their car, and say, what the hell's going on? You get 1/5 of the car. You get a fractional share of your car.
So I think we will wrap up there for this week's Word Wednesday on stock. But before we leave, I want to hit some key takeaways. A stock is a form of security that indicates the holder has proportionate ownership in the issuing corporation. Corporations issue or sell stock to raise funds to operate their business. Stocks are bought and sold predominantly on stock exchanges, though there can be private sales as well, and they are the foundation of nearly every portfolio. And historically, stocks have outperformed most other investments in the long run. And on the Road to Ruta side, we know that through high frequency trades and rehypothecation, that the stocks that you own, a bunch of other people own also. So it's not a true or honest way to really be creating wealth or having your money stored in any type of way. So thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. We're very excited for the next couple episodes. We're going to go into the regulators that oversee stocks and bonds, and I'm very excited to talk to you guys about that. So make sure you tune in, and we will see you then. Thank you so much for joining me, Vix. And
Thank you, Paige.
we'll see you guys soon. Bye.